Hello, I am Elka Baker, and this is the Potomac Valley Scottish Fiddle Club December workshop makeup live stream. On December 10th, we had our the video seemed to be going fine, the chat was fine, everything else was fine, but the sound was not fine. So this is a re-recording of I guess, a somewhat briefer version of the workshop with all of the same tunes. Um, but I've had to do this at home after the fact. So hopefully it's useful for everybody who wanted to see it on this live stream time on Sunday. And apologies that we couldn't get the sound sorted out fast enough to correct it on the spot. The first thing I'll say is that the music for this month, December 2023, is featuring Cape Breton tunes. And I am especially looking at two types of tunes, jigs, first and foremost, and then some marches or marching airs. There is also one reel, but we're really focusing more on the jigs this time. So a little bit of background I gave at the workshop is that jigs are part of the Cape Breton square dance sets. In the 19th century, when in fact there was quite a bit of settlement of Cape Breton from the Western Isles and Highlands of Scotland, the type of dance music that was popular in that day, this is more or less later half of the 1800s, was quadrille sets. And quadrille sets were danced in different parts. So there would be a set of music and people would go through various dancing figures in a square formation. And that's where that name quadrille, the quad part is for four sides of a square. So it's essentially square dancing, but it's specific kind. So they would do a set of figures, movements to a set of tunes or a particular music. There would be a pause in which the partners and their neighbors could chat, socialize, and then there would be new music and a different set of figures. Your typical quadrille or square dance would have three of these sets of figures, or three figures, or even five. There were some that had different numbers, but most typically three or five. These days, the square dances in Cape Breton typically have three figures. In any case, with these three sets of dances done together, you had to have contrasting music. Otherwise, it would just sound the same. So your typical Cape Breton square set has a figure, relatively brief figure done to jigs, another figure done to jigs, and a last figure done to reels. So there was much more demand for jigs than had previously been present in Scottish dance traditions. The old 18th century Highland, and to some extent popular in the lowlands as well, the social dancing had involved lots and lots of strathspeys and reels, and jigs were more occasional. They were not the bread and butter of the dancing in the 18th century. But in the 19th century, with the quadrilles, that changed. You needed a lot more jigs to get through it. Now, since there weren't as many native Scottish traditional jigs, although there are some, in Cape Breton, it became necessary for people to compose their own. So there's this great tradition of Cape Breton composed jig tunes to be played for these square dances. So that was the main focus of our December workshop. I decided I wanted to focus on some of the tunes in the key of F. We haven't really looked at them before. It's really easy to find jigs in friendly keys like D and G. Cape Breton players tend to play sets of jigs that are in a related key. And it's nice to have a few jigs in other keys so that you can have a set in a contrasting key so that the two jig figures feel really different. And having said that, there's some really amazing jigs in the key of F. I've been wanting to introduce them to Fiddle Club for many years. And so the first tune that I taught on December 10th by ear was this one. It's called Winifred Foley. I don't know a whole lot about who Winifred Foley was other than a person who lived, probably 70 years ago or so. Step dancer, fiddler, not entirely sure. Friend of the person who composed it. We don't know who composed it for sure. So this tune might even be older than that. It could date back to the 30s or something. And if I knew a little bit more about who Winifred Foley is or was, I could tell you more about that. This comes from Jerry Holland's collection where it's traditional, listed as traditional. And here's how the tune goes. So slowing it down so we can learn it bit by bit. 2 pickup notes, C and B flat. Oh, and you know what? We started out at Fiddle Club by warming up with an F scale. So let's go ahead and do that. F is natural. B is flat. And F is natural there too. Remember that C is natural in this key, B flat. And the arpeggio, F, A, and C. The low C, high A. So those are the arpeggio notes that get used through this tune. All right, 2 pickup notes, C and B flat. The playing is fairly even because it goes with the step dancing. And I demonstrated the jig step at Becky's house when we did the workshop. I'm not going to do it right now because I'm on a carpeted floor and you wouldn't hear the rhythm very well. And it might shake the connections of the system. And I had enough time getting the sound to be decent or half decent for this. So I'm not going to push it. Look up some step dance videos if you want to see what the step is like. Cape Breton step dancing. Okay, so 2 pickup notes, C and B flat. And then we have arpeggio notes, A and F. And D. Yeah, I think you can see my fingers a little better there. So the chair. Next. C. So the 2 bars put together. And again. And again. Next, we have a scale passage with a C pickup note up to the F and down the scale. The next measure goes right from that A note to a B flat, and then you jump up to the G and down the scale again with a skip. So let's do that fourth bar one more time. Skip a note. With the C pickup note, bars 3 and 4. And again. All right. And bars 5 and 6 are the same as 1 and 2. And the ending with a C pickup note, 2 little scales. Putting it together, we have the A part of the tune. The second time through the tune is very similar. It is not exactly the same in that the ending has a little turnaround that takes you on to the B part. So other than that, it is the same. So here's the second A. So instead of 2 Fs, which ends the first A, the second A ends with, so it can lead into the B part. So you'll have plenty of times to practice that A part. So I'm going to move it on to the B part here in the video. You can always replay the video if you want more practice. The B part. So we had that turnaround at the end of the A part. And what it does next is arpeggios. So we have an, this is actually part of the C7 arpeggio. So it's a, we're leaving the C note out and it's E, G, B flat, that's the beginning. The second bar, the F arpeggio notes that we practiced at the beginning of this. So let's do some more of these. So the first 4 bars of the B part are those 2 bars repeated, just like we just practiced. Bar 5 and 6, we just had twice a pickup of an A, and then we have the big jumps, B flat to a high B flat, and B flat to a G, and then A to an F. So those jump sequences are B flat to a G, A to an F, and the tag is a scale. One more on the scale with the pickup notes to the scale. So the last 4 bars of the B1 so that's linking up the jumps. With the scale. All right, so that's 8 bars of the B part that we've learned so far. Let's put those 8 bars together. I'm going to give you an F pickup note. Let's do it again. All right. The second half of the B part starts just the same way. Here's a lead on because it's just a little different the second time through. Instead of going straight to the C, you do. So that triplet, D, C, A. So that fits in like this. And then it goes on to just what we had before. Let me put it together for you. Here's the twist. So that's the B part. Let me play you both B parts. Remember the twist as you come down from the repeated 2 bars is really the only thing different between the B1 and the B2. And that is the entire tune. So let's put the whole thing together. From the top a little fast. I go faster, it starts to sound more like the jig as used in the dance. I also tend to put those ornaments in because it's really hard to leave them out. They're part of the tune, but they're not written in the music. They're just ad lib as you go. And in contrast to Scottish country dance jigs, which are typically played with heavy lilting or dotting on the triplets, the Cape Breton jigs are played nearly straight, with just a little more weight on the first note of the triplet. The second tune we learned by ear was Regina Stubbart. It's a jig by Brenda Stubbart. And I know that Regina Stubbart is related to her, but I have forgotten the exact family details there. So we'll just live without knowing that. Let me play it for you. This jig is quite popular. In fact, it's kind of typical if you go to session where Brenda's at it. Maybe Brenda's playing the piano, or she mainly plays the fiddle, but she also plays piano really well. And people will play this tune because they know she wrote it, and it's very well liked, and it's one of Brenda Stubbart's compositional hits. So let me play the tune for you so you get an idea how it sounds. Etc. I played one wrong note in the turnaround to going back to the beginning of the tune. I'll correct that. Let me play it for you, broken down piece by piece. People wanted to learn this one by ear as the second tune, although I did give them options. Little did they know this tune is kind of a perpetual motion. There are not a lot of pause points, and there's just a lot of triplets full of notes. So let's go ahead and learn the beginning of it. We're in the key of D, so F is sharp, C is sharp. There are no B flats in this version, in this tune. So bar 2. Just D arpeggio notes, yeah? So the first 2 bars. Okay, so the next 2 bars, bars 3 and 4 of the A part, pick up note G, and it sounds like this. Going on. This is now bars 5 and 6 with 2 pickup notes. We ended on the F sharp, and in triplet time, up the scale, bar 5. So the lead in from bar 4, we just played F sharps up the scale. Bar 6, no. So 5 and 6 by themselves, no lead in this time. Bar 7. The B, high G, and the ending, bar 8. Bars 7 and 8. for 8 bars, the first 8 bars of Regina Stubbard. One more time. Okay, the next 8 bars we have in time, in triplet time, 2 lead-in notes. So we just had the end of the phrase with this. So it's just F sharp and G leading into that A note that's the top of the new phrase. The second B part goes along pretty much the same for, let's see, and let me count exactly how many bars. It's 6 bars. And then we just have 7 and 8 that are different. So let's go ahead and do our lead in with the end of the phrase before. Let's see. And here's where it departs. The second ending. 2 scales, 1 high and 1 lower, leading up to the D. So that new part. So the 8 bars leading up to the second ending, the second A. All right, let's do it now with the entire A part. Okay, that's the whole A part. Now let's learn the B part. So the B part has a little bit of a chromatic feature. Pick up notes to the B part. We just ended on D. We're going to jump up to the F sharp, G leading into an A note at the top of the B part. Now here's our chromatic bit. G sharp, G natural. So let's do those again. Sharp, natural, bar 2 of the B part. And here's what's next. And then this should sound somewhat familiar. Now here's a different ending for the B part. Bar 7 and 8 of the B part. It's new. Again, sharp, G sharp, G natural. Let me get that again. G sharp, G natural, and the ending of the phrase. As with the A part, it ends, open-ended. It's unresolved on the A. So here are the first 8 bars of the B part put together with the pickup notes. All right, second B part, very similar. All the same so far. Still the same. And instead of the thing with the E and the G sharp, we just put the ending of the A part on it. The 2 scales and the D. There is one more thing, but I won't get to it until it's time to repeat the tune. Let's play the whole B part with the pickup notes. So. All right, so I'd like to put the entire tune together, and I think you'll remember the A part, and if not, just go back and review the video. Going on to D. To play it again, right down the scale. And there we go. We have Regina Stubbard by Brenda Stubbard. And I hope you enjoyed that tune. Um, all right, that was all that we did by ear at our live workshop. By that point, people's brains seemed to be full. And I did warn them about this tune. It's in the friendly key, but it's got a lot of notes. It just keeps going, right? And it doesn't have as much repetition nearly as Winifred Foley. So despite that Winifred Foley being in the key of F, and people think, oh, that's going to be harder, it's actually easier to learn. So next tune, we went and read through the tunes on pages, and it's book 31, pages 9 through 14, which you can find at the members section of the Fiddle Club website, available for download for Fiddle Club members. This tune is by Carl Mackenzie. And one thing about Carl Mackenzie's playing is Carl just has this vast repertoire, and he will play, a set in any key. It's almost like you name a key, and Carl will have a great set in that key, including a march or a slow marching air, strathspey and reel. And that includes unusual keys. Carl can do it in F sharp minor. He can do it in C. And considering that the overwhelming number of marches in the repertoire are in the key of A or D, there aren't that many in other keys. Carl has tunes in every key, marches in every key. And so this is part of my ongoing project through the Fiddle Club. Whenever I do find marches that are in other keys besides A and D, I like to let you know about them so that you can make use of them yourself. So this is a tune Carl Mackenzie wrote called Highland Classic. He featured it on one of his recordings, and of course played a lot of other great tunes in the same key, which is B minor. is Highland Classic by Carl Mackenzie. So I filled out the jigs in F with a few more tunes. This one is Miss Carmichael. It is, in fact, a traditional Scottish tune by William Shepherd. You could find it in William Shepherd's collection from the 1800s. This, however, is Winston Scotty Fitzgerald's version. And I at the workshop, I told a few more details about Winston Scotty. He was from Cape North, on the eastern north side of Cape Breton, and it's on the Cabot Trail. He would go around and do gigs, and it usually involved driving the Cabot Trail. And back in his day, the Cabot Trail was much more trail-like. It was a single lane road, gravel, and it was the kind of road where there's a mountain going up on one side of the road, and then mountain going down to the ocean on the other side. Very steep in certain places. And it was said that there was the right way to go around the Cabot Trail, which is counterclockwise, because otherwise if you go the other way around, then you're going to be on the outside with the tumble down to the ocean if you have to pass another car going the other direction. So Winston Scotty used to have a trio that he played with, a guitar player and piano player. The piano player, she had a day job, and these guys, every one of their gigs would involve going someplace far. And then frequently she'd be sleeping in the back of the car while one of the other two drove back so that she could make it to work the next morning, and along roads like the Cabot Trail. So hopefully there weren't too many cars to pass late at night after they'd come and finished a dance. So here's Miss Carmichael and Winston Scotty's take on this tune, which is honestly about the same as its original, with those typical Winston Scotty turnarounds that he was so clever at doing. Here we go. So you have to go into another tune in F after that, right? And so what better than the next tune on page 12, the Champion Jig. This is another traditional tune. And again, I'm giving you Winston Scotty Fitzgerald's version. I'm just also going to mention Champion Jig is, the A part is basically in the key of F. The B part is essentially in the key of D minor. And this is because it's traditional in Cape Breton when you're playing a dancing set that you don't really jump from key to key. This is quite different from the current custom in Scottish country dance sets. So instead of changing keys, you try to build a medley all in the same key. But there are certain permitted transitions. So we have Winifred Foley and Miss Carmichael in the key of F. The Champion Jig starts in F, and then it goes to D minor. Well, that means that you could then add on some other tunes in D minor. You know, for example, Sailor's Wife is a well-known one. And then from there, you could even transition from D minor eventually to E major. So if you didn't have enough F tunes to fill out your set, that's your off-ramp that gets you somewhere else. So let me play the Champion Jig for you. This one's traditional. It's known in Ireland. It's known in Scotland. And this is the Cape Breton version from Winston Scotty Fitzgerald's repertoire. and on into the next one. So here's one more jig in F. This one was written in more recent times. It's called Jackie and Mamie's Jig, and it's by David Greenberg. I got a little story about David Greenberg. I actually first met him when we were both in high school. We grew up in Maryland. He went to a neighboring high school, and I first met him at an inter-high school. I think it was like a math competition. We were both in like the math club, math Olympiad club, or something like that, at our respective schools. And then years later, I met him doing fiddling. And what happened is David went off to college in Indiana, and that's where he met Kate Dunley, who's the amazing musicologist of Cape Breton fiddle music. And she introduced him to Cape Breton fiddle music. They ended up getting married. David really dove into Cape Breton music and became quite an expert. This tune he wrote somewhere along the way, and Buddy McMaster recorded it, and it became quite well known. So I'd heard it, and then I realized it was written by David. I thought, oh, that's very interesting. So here's Jackie and Mamie's Jig. So let me play it a little slower, since this one's got a lot of string changes. It might be handy to have a slower version of it. And faster again. All right. So moving on. On page 13, I have two tunes that are not jigs. Not jigs for a change. How about that? And so the first one is an example of one thing that I think is a very key element of Cape Breton march playing. It's a march or marching air that is derived from a strathspey. And this is one way that Cape Breton players find those marches in other keys. If you're going to play a strathspey and reel in the key of C or in the key of F sharp minor, you find yourself a strathspey or perhaps an air in 4/4 that's in that same key, and turn it into a march. You marchify it. So this tune is called Mrs. Fraser of Lovett. It's by Robert Petrie. He was a late 18th century, early 19th century his books were published in the first two decades of the 1800s. And this tune in Robert Petrie's book is a strathspey, and it would sound as a strathspey something like this. And instead, the Cape Breton player that I learned this from has turned it into a march. So very different feel. The player I got this from is Ian McDougall. He made one of my favorite live recordings. It's obviously from a house concert or a small venue concert, and it's got all the elements of a live recording. So you can hear the audience, including the funny things that people do at concerts. Like at the beginning of this particular track, there's the loud shusher, the person who, because some other people are going, he says, shh, and it's really, really, really loud. It's louder and more disruptive than any of the mumbling. So the shush is the most disruptive part of it all. And then there's another part later on the recording that always just cracks me up, where Ian McDougall plays a particularly lively set of reels. It just basically burns the house down, and then somebody says very deadpan, well, that's a bit more like it. So I just always get a kick out of that live recording. The other thing about this Ian McDougall recording is that basically it's one of those recordings where you listen to it and you say, I want to learn that tune. Oh, and I want to learn that tune. And I want to learn that. In fact, you basically want to learn every tune that the guy plays. So it's just full of good tunes. So here's Ian McDougall's marching air take on what was originally a strathspey by Robert Petrie, Mrs. Fraser of Love It. Okay, so I had some questions in the workshop about Mrs. Fraser of Love It. So what's with the C sharp sometimes and the C natural sometimes? Well, it's because of the natural scale based on natural harmonics, which is in use in Cape Breton, much more so in prior generations. The current music is still influenced by it, but not as many players use it exclusively. It can sound out of tune to people who are used to, the equal tempered scale. That's kind of like your standard orchestra scale that most people use in this country in modern times. The natural scale is based on natural harmonic overtones. It's not wrong, it's different. And one of the features of it is that that third degree of the scale, the third note of the scale, sits in between the sharp and natural position. And so it can be interpreted sharp or interpreted natural. And if you're used to playing that scale, it makes no difference. You just go there. Um, and Cape Breton piano players who, their instruments are not tuned to this natural scale, they will either make a choice of chord or leave it open for the ear to interpret. Um, and so that also happens towards the end of the tune. You have an F sharp in this tune that otherwise has no sharps built in. That's the third degree of the D scale, and it's very temporarily in the related key of D rather than in A, which we are interpreting as A minor for the most part of this tune. Other huge section where I gave you chords in A major. It's subject to interpretation, so somebody else's ear could hear it a slightly different way. It's that C that sits in between sharp and natural. All right, next one on the page is Laurel's Reel. It's by Ali Bennett. Ali Bennett is well known in Cape Breton for playing guitar. He's been on a lot of other fiddlers' recordings as a guitar player. He also sings, and he also plays the fiddle. In fact, he plays the fiddle very well. And a few years back, I got to hang out with Ali Bennett at a jam session. Laurel's Reel has gotten around, so I've heard it played elsewhere at other sessions, and it's kind of caught on. Let me play Laurel's Reel for you fast. Then I'll give you a slower version and a moderate version. right. Just two more tunes. I probably should have cut it short at this point, but this is a direct response to some thoughts that were going around at the last Fiddle Club meeting jam session. In fact, it comes up almost every time because people love to play jigs in the key of E, and we play the same, 4, maybe 5 jigs in the key of E. And people say, oh, I wish we knew more jigs in the key of E. We'd play them too. Well, here's another jig in the key of E. It's a tune by Jerry Holland, and it's called Meeting John Hartford. John Hartford is an American old time player. So this tune in the key of E, and then the B part goes into, guess what? The key of B at an extra sharp. Basically, it's 5 sharps. So if you think it could be sharp, it is. It's sharp. It's in the higher range of the fiddle, so this tune is not that terrible on the fiddle. I cannot answer for how it fits on other instruments. It's probably horrible. Well, I guess it depends on your instrument, right? But anyway, Meeting John Hartford, key of E, then B, and then when you return to E, boy, E never looked so good as when you come off of 5 sharps and drop down to a mere 4. And it goes on in that vein. Let me play it slower for you. So it really does stretch you out. You have in that B part, not only the D sharp, but also A sharp, A sharp. So it requires you to stretch out those fingers. All right, for a little bit of mercy, Allie Bennett's jig in E minor. As in many tunes named for a particular person, it's not by Allie Bennett, it's for Allie Bennett. It was written by Jennifer Rowland. Jennifer Rowland, I had the pleasure of hearing her in concert a number of years ago, and it was kind of interesting because I had 1 or 2 recordings by her, and then I saw her in concert, and in every one of them, it's like completely different hairstyle: curly hair, brown hair, blonde hair, short hair, long hair. Turned out, Paul Cranford told me that her day job was a hairdresser. So that kind of explains all the hairstyles. She's a remarkable player. Very good. This tune came from the Fiddle tune column in the local paper, the Victoria Standard. Allie Bennett's Jig by Jennifer Rowland. I did that at the live workshop too, where I messed up the second to last bar. Let's play the repeat of the B part. I did it again. So what's happening? The reason why I'm messing up is that I've got my bow going the opposite direction from the way I would like it to be to navigate that particular figure. And then I try to insert a slur automatically, and then it really messes up. So don't do that. Just play single bow, then it'll all work out fine. Let me play that tune for you a little slower, and then we'll wrap this up. Allie Bennett's Jig by Jennifer Rowland. And that is our selection of Cape Breton tunes this month of December 2023, featuring Cape Breton jigs especially, and some marches and one reel. And I hope you've enjoyed our little excursion into Cape Breton music. And I'll see you next month, hopefully with better live streaming and live sound. We'll hope that we've managed to not replicate that problem we had in December next time around. So take care. See you next time.